But now we come to theatre curriculum in the main, presumably. Or else we're coming very much to the theatre dominating the curriculum. So teaching people about the theatre would seem to me very much at the heart of work at this level, though you will have other aspects that would obviously interest you. So I thought at first we ought to just recover for ourselves what we know are the laws of theatre, without which people cannot progress. So it's important, I think, you just jot those down in the form you consider them, not necessarily using my form at all. But what are those laws without which a piece of theatre cannot be created? Because I find when I go into sixth form, well, I haven't been in lately, but I used to teach a lot in the high school on the theatre course there, and I did find students had no realisation of their theatre knowledge. They were used to being in plays, they were used to, and small dramas, and they were used to producing bits and pieces like you do, you know, but they had no realisation of the tools. And it seems to me, unless they're going to have that realisation, you might as well pack it in, because how are they going to face their A-levels, or whatever you call it these days? So I used to spend a lot of time helping them realise those laws. Were there any other laws that you can give form to? Doesn't matter if you can't, but you must for yourself. And it isn't a question of getting a list that forever suits, it's a question of the list constantly breaks itself into new, not into new little bits, but new aspects that make you perceive more what that law's really about. Now, if I said to you, reduce it all to one statement, in a way, children deserve this. They deserve a sort of encapsulated statement. Now, my reduction would come out something like this, and I'm not expecting you to necessarily find it the best one. It's the one I feel I can get a grip on it. In the theatre, the meaning that emerges is basically about bondings. Its amazing value is that you can sit, and whether you realise it or not is not relevant, that what you are seeing is relationships expressed. And relationships are always related with bondings, not bondage. And that the amazing range and variety of theatre, and indeed all drama, is always in the end an exploration and exposition of bondings. So at level 1 it may be an exploration, at level 4 it is an exposition for others, not just for yourself. That is its amazing, absorbing quality, and why it can never ever repeat itself. Because bondings don't. And these bondings are always on the way somewhere. Some bondings are being reforged, some built, some lost, and so on. But they are always in process of change. What the theatre does, what the playwright does, and at level 1 you function as playwright, you order the tension possibilities. The playwright is always highly selective of which moments best reveal, through the action and interaction of persons in space-time, engage you with those bondings. That's the first thing. The second thing about it is that all those bondings are expressed through a limited palette. But the limited palette is unlimited in its variety. And it is based upon sign. That hard-edged sign, which is so complex and is forward-moving all the time. People are forwarding it. They may be still, at this moment, being responsive. So they're not necessarily never still when I say forwarding it. And this is what it's about then. And it is forged and understood, this meaning you've been talking about, is forged and understood in the process of it. It is never understood through talking about it. It is partially comprehended through talking about it, but you will never understand it until you meet it, come to grips with the bonding through the act, through the doing thing. I tried to explain to the Volkswagen managers one day this business of interaction, which in your real life you deal with, and in the theatre it gives you time to think about it. If we are in a scene together, I'll just use us because we happen to be doing it. And a particular incident I was looking at with them, because they were all young men with young children. And they're dealing with cars, and so I was dealing with a truck, because they were all good drivers. And they spend their lives in cars, about cars. And the circumstance I'd taken from Swimmer in the Secret Sea, where the young man, so he was their age, is furiously wrestling with the gears of a truck outside a hospital gates, and his wife is standing with a dead baby in a cardboard box. It sounds horrendous, but it wasn't offered in this mode, the way I'm doing it now. And his utter fury, because he can't express what's happened, is spent on the bloody gears, because I've bent it their way. I've made all the signing to do with a bloody car, only it's a bloody truck. And the weather's bad. So she's standing with the cardboard box. And all the situation was, get the truck to the hospital gates, remember it's icy, and get out, and get her in, and get the box appropriately placed, and get away from here. And the circumstance of bonding I gave them was, she was to indicate, please, please, that's all. And of course they were all men. Now that's what I mean by theatre. Now you can't talk that. So of course the first thing they had to do was get the guts to choose a partner who would be a female, you know, in the sense of the one holding is the mother of the dead child. And what they couldn't understand, because they're not into theatre at all, was they tried to look to the future. When I've got this thing going, will I back it up? Not. I am now getting this bloody thing going. To be in now time, really now and not anticipate, is one of the most important understandings students have to get if they're going to understand theatre, and then they form it out of what their first responses were. Because the self-spectator begins to monitor. So the lad I was doing it with, I said, I'm just going to give you an example. I don't know what I'm going to do with Tony. Tony was the name of the guy, it's not this Tony. It's a left-hand drive truck. I don't know why he chose a left-hand drive truck, but anyway. So I had to get in the right-hand side. And he was busy thinking of the future. I couldn't get him to just be now. That the truck would move when the truck could move. Anyway, he made it in the end. He gets me to sit down, and I have this please, but I can't decide what I will do. And one of the problems I find with sixth formers is somebody somewhere has helped them to think and to decide in advance what they're going to do. And until they stop that, theatre will not happen to them. Because they'll never have been authentically in the response position. And I explained, I don't know what I'll do, went Tony. I don't know how I'll say please. And all I found I could do was just put my head on his shoulder. That was what I could do. After that, we can monitor it and see how it feels. And did it say what we wanted it to say? Will it communicate all we want it to be? Does it need more than that? But that stumbling on authenticity seems to me absolutely important. And you may feel I'm splitting hairs, but I find it isn't there. I see contrived businesses. Because partly, and especially I think with the new curriculum, you're being pushed into having them get so good, so fast, so being able to show what they can do with their production, that they have never gone through that terribly vulnerable stage of simply resting in the moment and finding what sign you discover for that particular bonding moment. So you're not thinking ahead when she says, I want to see him. If you've had the sort of experience I've been on about just now, you've an enormous trust then in the sign. Does this make sense to you, or am I living in a daft world of my own? It's the first element of theatre that later is built on with all the technique. And frequently I find, and this is really leading up to what I would hope you would try this morning, people try for their canvas is too long and too big. You see, a 3-minute section of text is far too long. 10 lines is far too long for students to really get into the heart of theatre, so it can work slowly enough. Now here's a small text, and I've probably used it before, some of you may have heard it. This is the text, and I asked some sixth form teachers to write me a script for some theatre students based on this incident. There's a young man, it goes back to our skeleton bones, there's a young man has his wife dead in a lead box. He needs formaldehyde. It's the middle of the 18th century. He knows he can summon the chemist because he's of the noble family in the area. And he needs formaldehyde. And he has summoned the chemist. But what arrives is the chemist's young daughter. And I asked them to write me a script as to how the young man dealt with the situation. He still needs the formaldehyde, but he's faced with this young girl because her father's ill. That's all it is. That's the incident. And there's a bonding got to be explored. He needs formaldehyde. And they all produced me 3-page scripts. Now I find that nonsensical. 3 pages is far too much for a young person to sustain, even if they're only speaking half of it. They were a bit upset, and I can understand it. I said, OK, give us your script, thanks very much. And I went away and I wrote a script based on their script. And the script was, I had expected your father. My father is sick. He bids me help. And that is enough. And on that script you can teach in 2 lessons everything there is about theatre. Because you only need to give 2 actors one other who has no script. Now, I'm not saying you've got to do it on formaldehyde, for God's sake. I mean, that arose out of the project. That is enough. And if you dare work on a halfpenny, it shows how old I am. If you dare work on a halfpenny, they will learn what theatre is. And you just think of the sorts of marvels they produced. First of all, they were taken aback they could have anybody in the script who didn't speak. They kept saying, what's this other one for? And these were bright kids. Bright with it. What's this other one for? It's something to do with it might be useful. You can't neglect it, though. It must be in the circumstance. What do we get? Where would you ever got this sort of genius? One of the boys lays the 3rd one down. We have 2 girls and a boy in this group. They lay one of the girls down, a non-speaker, as the statue of his dead wife. And what is he doing while he's waiting for this visitor? And when the guest appears and he says, I had expected your father. What is this statue about? Another one used the 3rd one as the ghost that he saw in the distance. Wherever he turned, she was there. Another one used the 3rd person as the butler, who produced a drink, some refreshment. Now, they need that because they have to understand that there's this amazing expansion in theatre. Not everybody is standing there chopping their heads off, and there are no bit parts. There are no bit parts.